What's happening, Hardscapers? This is episode 189 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. And on today's episode, we have Phil Harwood. He is a management consultant, speaker, author, writer, blogger. He helps business owners increase the value of their business in preparation for sale or transition, facilitating buy-sell transactions. So we get into succession planning on this episode, something that we have not yet talked about in depth on this podcast. So you'll definitely want to tune into this one. And thank you, Cycle CPA, for sponsoring today's episode. If you need accounting, bookkeeping, CFO services, especially this year in your business, reach out to cycle_CPA on Instagram or cyclecpa.com, and you get $200 off their services if you mention the How to Hardscape podcast. So be sure to do that there. And speaking of getting in control of your numbers, budgeting is incredibly important to be able to measure the success of your business, to reach goals in your business that you set within your budget. And if you want to learn more about budgeting and estimating, the members only platform will have the How to Hardscape headquarters included in it. And this is a software that's going to allow you to budget, estimate, and so much more. So if you want to learn more about that, shoot me a message on Instagram at How to Hardscape or members.howtohardscape.com. We'll help you get started with budgeting for 2023. We'll talk more about that and Cycle CPA later in today's episode. But for now, let's get into our interview with Phil Harwood. Today, we're joined by Phil Harwood. He is a management consultant, speaker, author, writer, and blogger with a passion for helping business owners increase the value of their businesses in preparation for sale or transition to the next generation and facilitating buy-sell transactions. And this is a topic that we haven't got into on the podcast, so I'm really happy to have you, Phil. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Glad to be here.
Let's get started, Phil, to get to know a little bit more about you yourself, how you got started in your career and what brought you to today where you are. Do you want to give our audience a little bit of rundown and context about you?
Yeah, thank you. Just as succinctly as possible. So I've been in the industry since 1985. So that's a long time. And the first 10 years of my career in the green industry, I was working in retail, which was really cool. But it was very much residential focused, helping people pick out plants and, deal with insects and diseases and turf and all kinds of things like that, but really focused on, lawn and garden sales at a retail level. And I worked for a really big company and did a bunch of different cool things there, but really fell in love with the green industry. Then the next 15 years, I was in contracting, full service. So hardscape, landscape management, big commercial snow operations. And that's where I really got to love snow, and I love snow and, equipment and everything that comes with it. But I just love the experience of the contractor and the fight you fight every day, to win, and just how rewarding it is to do that well. And then 15 years ago, I left all that to help other people with their businesses. So I started a consulting firm called ProMotion Consulting. And we started that in 2008, right during a recession, which is a great time to start a business. But it turns out lots of people need help during a recession, and we just took off. So that business just went crazy. We ended up opening up another business called growthebench.com. We offer training and a lot of soft skill training for management and owners and account managers and salespeople and snow and landscape and all kinds of cool stuff. And then we had the opportunity to acquire the Snow Fighters Institute from the founder, a guy named John Allen, who was really the founder of SIMA and the whole snow industry. And John is focusing on his expert witness business now. So we acquired Snow Business. So now I'm running 3 companies: ProMotion, Grow the Bench, and Snow Fighters. And then to just for funsies, started a 4th company called Tamarisk Business Advisors. TamariskAdvisors.com is the website. And really what Tamarisk is focused on, and we're going to blow up Tamarisk. We're going to hire, we're going to be on a hiring spree. We're going to blow this up because Tamarisk is focused exclusively on helping people with succession planning, exiting their businesses, getting ready to sell, building value to optimize that transaction, with their estate planning. So getting into their wills and estates and trusts and how to set up their assets and their property and do all those transactions to protect their wealth, basically. Because, if you run a business, your wealth is tied up in your business. So the only way to extract it is to have a transaction, really, unless you're going to hand it off to your kids and let them, realize the value. But we're really focused on that. So that's what Tamarisk is. And really that's really my passion. And, I'm at the very end of the baby boomer generation. And that's just this massive demographic of older folks who are retiring. And most businesses, well over 50% of all businesses, are still owned by baby boomers. And so if you think about the massive transfer of wealth that's going to happen over the next 10, 15, 20 years, probably not 20 years, probably more like 10 years, it's going to be incredible. And some of that wealth, unfortunately, is never going to be extracted. Companies aren't going to be able to sell. They're going to just liquidate and get, some cases, pennies on the dollar, which is unfortunate. If you spent your whole life trying to build something and then you can't get out and realize the value, that really, that unfortunate, I think, is the right word. But then just helping people be ready for the inevitable. We never know when our time's up, right? So just being ready, having things in place, having buy-sell agreements, having insurance, having, tools in place so transitions can happen in an emergency, but also hopefully when, as planned. So there you go.
I don't even know exactly where to start this conversation because there's so many avenues I'm sure we can go down. But you mentioned there companies not ready for sale, and when it comes to it, they end up liquidating assets, and that's the sale of their business, especially in a very equipment heavy industry like hardscaping, landscaping. What can a business owner, and where do you even start as a business owner starting a business to prepare for a sell of your company, to have that thought process in mind, and build your company to be able to sell rather than to liquidate assets at pennies on the dollar?
Great question. In most companies, no one wants to think about this because no one wants to face, the inevitable. And so it's the last thing on your plate, right? You have all these things to deal with today, equipment and jobs and customers and sales and payroll. And so you're focused on all that, right? Just keeping the wheels moving. Maybe you can do a little strategic planning and get out ahead of things in your mind, and sometimes, and I've done a lot. That's what I've been focused on for 15 years, helping companies do that. And that's even painful because they're so busy with the day-to-day. It's so hard for them to pull away and just take a little bit of brain power and think about the future. So it's really hard to get them to think about the end. But the people who do it really benefit greatly, and their families benefit greatly. And I've seen some really good examples of that with different business owners that have really, exactly like you talked about, really from the beginning said, look, I'm going to build this thing so it's very valuable and I can sell it, either because I want to sell it and cash out and go travel the world, or go live on a boat, or just play golf every day, or go do something else, maybe start another business, or sell it because there's, I get hurt, or, something happens, right? I mean, we have things that happen in our lives, and like things change, and we need to make a change. And so, being just mindful that, look, there's going to come a time when there's going to be a transaction. Okay. It might not be when you want it to happen. Okay. But even if you said, look, I'm going to do what I have to do to put, I'm going to get a buy sell in place with my partners or whatever today. But I really want to think, all right, I know 15, 20 years from now, I'm going to be done with this. I'm going to be ready to move on. I'm going to be tired. Because everyone does. If you talk to anybody who's over 40, they're like, I'm tired. I've been doing this since I've been, 17 years. I'm just tired. Going to work every day is a grind. And so then your life's just then you're just grinding it out, and it's painful. And you get over 50 and then you're really tired. So like when you're 20, you should know that's coming. Okay. And you should be able to just plan on it. Like, I'm going to hit that point. And so the faster you get out, the earlier you get out ahead of that, the better you are, because you can, I think the best way to do this is through like associations where you can meet other business owners and peer groups, and connecting with people, through trade groups, but really talk to owners who are in their 50s and 60s, or maybe even better, after they've done the transaction. Like, well, how did it work? And what did you learn? And I mean, there's some cool podcasts to listen to. Built to Sell Radio is one. That's a great podcast to listen to if you want to just hear stories about how people went from, 3x multiplier, like a multiplier of 3, up to a multiplier of like 18 or 25, because they had strategic buyers who were bidding for their companies. And I mean, just insane valuations. So, I think we just think, oh, we're going to get a valuation of, 3 or 4 or 5. And if we get 5, we hit a home run. No, the home run should be 20. That's the home run. Like, let's do that. But, probably hard to do in our industry, but it's, again, if you understand what the world that you're going to end up into, you can better prepare for it.
Absolutely. So I've got a few notes here to get into after what you just said there. But having said, preparing for a sale, how do we as business owners create value in our business beyond the equipment that we own? I know, quite a few businesses that have gone out of business, and that's, at the end of the day, all they had to sell was their equipment, and that's all that they were able to liquidate. And after decades, or at least a decade of business, that's all they had to show for it. Where does that added value come from with a landscape business, hardscape business, that improves that valuation?
Yeah, another great question. So there's a set of criteria that all buyers are going to assess when they look at the value of a business, and they're known, like people know what they are. Okay, and I'm going to offer something to your listeners here, which is completely free, no obligation. But like one of them is how involved the owner is, and people have probably heard that before, and they probably are aware of that, but specifically how involved the owner is in the sales process and with the operational processes. Because if the company can't run without the owner, then no one's going to want to buy that company for a high value, because the owner isn't coming with the company. Okay. Probably. Okay. And even if there's a earn out period, the owner sticks around for 3 years or 5 years, or, I mean, sometimes that works out, sometimes it doesn't. I think it's really hard for an owner to work for someone else. even if there's an earnout. So that's probably not a wonderful situation to be in. But so setting up a leadership team and setting up a sales process and having other people being responsible for sales reliably without the owner's involvement, that's one of those criteria. Okay. And so what I'm going to offer to your listeners, if it's okay, 100% no obligation. If you hit up my new website, tamariskadvisors.com, go to the Go Forth page. There's a page that says Go Forth. And there's a free assessment tool on there called Value Builder. It is so cool. This Value Builder technology is amazing. It's going to kick out this wonderful valuation of your business, and it's going to give you really cool insight into all those different factors like I just talked about, but it's good. It's very granular. Okay. Again, no obligation. Just go there, click on it and go for it.
And just to interrupt you really quick, Tamarisk, TAMARISK advisors.com. Go there, go forth. It's very easy to find, and that'll be in the show notes as well.
Yes. The tamarisk is a tree. It's a tree in the desert. And the reason we named our company Tamarisk Business Advisors is because the tamarisk tree is a legacy tree. It takes generations for it to grow. So if you plant a tamarisk tree today, you're never going to benefit from it. Your great grandkids are going to benefit from it. So it's a cool, it's a legacy tree. There you go.
Awesome. Yeah. And just going through that really quickly right now as well, just seeing what's available there. So I just want to take a break from today's episode to talk about our sponsor, Cycle CPA. You may have a CRM or project management software in place, but what data are you using to ensure your estimating is accurate? Having a proper accounting setup and accurate bookkeeping done is key to understanding overhead expenses and other costs that must be recouped in your estimates. Cycle CPA is a remote bookkeeping and CFO firm that helps to connect the dots from the financial reports to the hardscape and landscape data needed in order to reach high profits. They provide landscape and hardscape industry benchmarking, job costing, financials by service line, advisory meetings, and much more. Cycle CPA's team of accountants are specialized within the hardscape and landscape industry, and you can visit them at cyclecpa.com, and for $200 off, mention the How to Hardscape podcast. Now back to our episode. The more the business owner is out of the picture and has those people, especially in the sales process, taken over, is very key to that, as you said. And I'm sure that takes systems and processes. If at Grow the Bench or at any of your other ventures, do you assist in creating I guess what I'm asking is, what level of business owners do you typically consult with? In Are you getting people all the way from owner operator that are still in the field coming to you and trying to understand how they can create value in their businesses? Or is it more so those business owners that are have this seed in their mind that, they've started to take a step away from their business and have really put the people in charge in their business to take over these operations? What level of contractor is typically coming to you for advice?
They fall into different categories. What we see are the startup, younger, early stage companies. They have very limited capacity to work with advisors like ourselves on a very deep basis. Plus, there's limited funding, and that's why we started Grow the Bench, and that's why we do Snow Fighters Institute training, because those are extremely valuable things that don't require a huge time commitment, and they're very affordable versus traditional consulting, which tends to be a little pricey when you start really going in deep. I know some of the engagements I've had over the years have been, a little like, we're not free, and we add up, the time adds up. But so we work with all different levels of company. We don't really chase the biggest companies in the world. We found they already have lots of advisors and they're pretty well set up. But I would say anyone from zero revenue, just getting going, we could absolutely help them. And we have lots of free things too. People like free things. Um, and we have awesome, just like I said, lots of free stuff, including a newsletter, but assessment tools. But we work with generally companies up to around 20 million or so. So lots of companies in the $1, $2 to $5 million revenue category. And they don't have to be, getting ready to sell. Like I would love to help people. A lot of my coaching clients are next gen, they're in their 30s, and I'm working with them so they can be prepared to take over the business from mom and dad. I've kind of given up on the parents. Like we're trying to get the parents out the door. We're trying to get the kids, to going, and it's going well, but it's a lot of work. So, one of the other things that so when you think about these, value builder factors, if someone takes that assessment, they'll see is, just having reoccurring revenue that's kind of on a subscription model. So thinking in terms of how do you sell services that are repeatable and that you don't have to sell all the time. So you think in hardscape, well, everything's one and done, but not necessarily. What if you sold a package of, re-sweep, sweeping and cleaning up and, a paver patio. Just like people would love that. People would appreciate that. They paid a lot to have it put in. It looks wonderful. And then the next year it looks, there's, doesn't look as great. And then 3 years later, it looks really bad. And then 5 years later, they call you and, they're mad. I don't know. Maybe it's not that fast, but like what if you just offered a service package and went out there and, got it cleaned up every year? They would love that.
Definitely. Yeah, I've been thinking about that more and more, what you just brought up there. And we've had business owners on the podcast talk about everything from lifetime warranty packages, but it's paid upfront in an initial investment. And like you said, and I'd like your opinion on this, uh, would that be less valuable to a new or somebody looking to purchase that business than if you were to not make that lifetime warranty package payment upfront, but rather create that recurring business model where each
Yeah, you want
year.
the reoccurring revenue. You want the
Yeah,
reoccurring, absolutely. So I would not do the upfront. I would do reoccurring revenue. I think about, okay, you put in this big hardscape package, maybe you work in lighting. Well, lights need to be cleaned. So maybe, twice a year or 4 times a year, or once a month. I don't know. You have different packages. People, you're going out to these properties and you're cleaning off the lights and you're making sure they're positioned properly and you're replacing bulbs that are burned out and you're fixing the wire that the critters chew through. And I don't know, you're just keeping the thing going forever. It's a subscription.
it's such a great idea, and my mind's going nuts just thinking about the possibilities with that, from pressure washing, even like the spring and late fall seasons when things get muddy and it gets more and more difficult to work, just going in with a pressure. Yeah, lots of great things to get into with that recurring business model and to improve the valuation of your business through that. Having said that, we did mention, or you did mention earlier in the podcast, being able to sell your business and being a part of these associations. I'm sure that has to do with building your network, because I'm sure a lot of these business sales come from that network, and as opposed to listing on some sort of,
They do.
yeah. And what does that look like? And can we talk a little bit of the importance of, say, building your network, or to yeah, be a part of these associations to be able to know people, to be able to sell, and what that has looked like in your experience?
Well, it's really been some of the most rewarding parts of my experience being in the industry is the relationships I've developed through these trade associations. Because what I've found is, especially at the national or big regional associations where people are not competing in the same market, if you're going to a local association and everyone in the room is your competitor, people are pretty guarded. But as soon as you go national, people are not guarded at all. They're very friendly. They're very open. They want to get to know people. They want to know how other people are doing things. And so there's just this hunger to connect with other people. And there's such a desire from people who have had some success to help young people in the industry. It's incredible. I mean, just almost so much resource there that you couldn't even take advantage of all of it because you just don't have time. You have to pick and choose. But there's so much available resources through these associations, and really almost any trade association is this way in my experience, especially if they're national level. So just not being afraid, just like every time I'm going up the elevator with somebody or standing next to someone in line getting a coffee, it's like, hi, I'm Phil. I'm from Michigan. They're like, oh yeah, nice to meet you. Da, da. And next thing you know, you're trading business cards and you're following up with an email, and you just weave the web, it just grows over time. And then pretty soon you have lots and lots of people, in the industry, and you go to these events and everyone's a friendly face that you've met before and you're having a great time. But more than that, to your point, when you're starting to think, well, who am I going to sell my business to? Who would buy my business? I mean, it's really best if you kind of have an idea who you want to go after, who a strategic buyer is. And even better if you can create a little competition, like, oh, I would love to sell it to you, but these folks over here are really interested too. So, okay, that changes things a little bit. But I think that's really smart to just kind of know who the buyers are, because right now companies are buying other companies, and they just are, because labor shortage, that's the only way they can grow is to acquire. Can't hire anyone. So, if you want to grow, you're buying other companies, and you're adding on their management team. Sometimes you're adding on the owner. A lot of companies, the smaller companies, these owners they're working 80 hours a week and they're making half of what they could be making if they just went and got a job working for someone else. So they're just killing themselves, and they just don't have the resources to ever get beyond that. And so they're really better off just let someone else take them and acquire them and go work for someone else and get paid what market rates are, right? And work more of a realistic, so you're not the owner anymore, but you're getting paid well and you're still in the industry. Or maybe you are an owner. Maybe ownership is part of it. I don't know. But that's what's happening in the industry, right? The big roll up. It's happening every day in the industry.
This is a little bit of a off-topic subject that I want to ask you about, but in your experience, how many years has been like an average, or what you've seen generally, where the owner is able to build that business, where they're able to step aside and let that business operate by itself? Or even how many years before selling the business actually becomes a viable and valuable option for a business owner?
Well, I've seen the spectrum. I've seen the entire spectrum from blow it up really quickly and sell it 10 years, sell it for $100 million. Okay. I've seen that. Okay. Realistically, because PE companies buy big company, and you can do that. But you have to be really motivated. You have to be the right person to do that. So I've seen that happen more than once. Most people can't do that.
Right.
The other end of the extreme is, someone's been in business 35 years and the owner still has to do everything. And so I see that a lot. And so in between you want to be somewhere in between that somewhere. On average, I don't know what's the average. I don't know. Maybe, I mean, I think if you're going to start something from zero, you're probably not going to realistically, 10 years later, have it ready to sell probably. So probably 15, 20 years is kind of the window, I think, but I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know if there's a average there somewhere. It's just I think honestly, I would say very, very few companies are in the first category where they blow it up in 10 years and can sell it. But I think probably more than half of the industry is in the other category, where the owner has never been able to get out of doing everything. So I think it's really weighted toward that.
Thanks for answering that. And I just want to pick your brain a little bit about that in terms of the business owners that you have come in contact with over time, and that business owner that is able to blow up their business to that whatever million mark it is in a very short amount of time, versus the business owner that is still in their business operating and it's still relying on them for after 20 years, 30 years, 35 years, whatever that might be, what are some personality traits that you've seen that are, different between the two? That business owner that's able to step away from their business, they're able to allow people to, operate in their business, as opposed to the business owner that can't, let go. Different personality traits that you've seen, or different things about them that you've kind of picked out that you're like, oh, this is definitely what sets them apart.
Yeah, the biggest one that stands out is the ability to fail. Is the embracing failure. Because if you can't fail, then you're never going to try things. You're never going to turn things over, or you're going to turn something over and someone's going to mess it up, and then you're just never going to do it again. You're never going to let someone else try. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it myself for the rest of my life, because the last time 30 years ago when I let someone else, do this, they didn't do it right. Okay, well, good luck. You could be running that cut off saw the rest of your life there, brother. So being willing to fail. I mean, there's speakers, there's TED Talks on this, lots of failure. I mean, just look at all the great inventors, how many times they failed before they hit a home run. Any, successful business people, like there's books and books and books. There's, sections of books at the bookstore on business books about very successful people who failed over and over and over again before. Look at Abraham Lincoln, right? There's like posters. He lost this election. He went bankrupt, and this happened, and then he lost this, and he lost, fail, fail, fail. And then he was president and did the greatest thing in the world, right? So you got to keep trying, but you got to be willing to fail. So if you're not going to be able to hire people, give them a chance, let them screw it up, coach them through it, replace them if you need to, go to the next person, well, then you're never going to be able to grow. You have to let people make mistakes. So it's, there's a lot of analogies between parenting and and business leadership, and it's the same thing with your kids. Like, you have to let your kids make mistakes. You have to let them fail. Like, that's how they learn. And you coach them through it. I mean, if you're so there's the helicopter parent that hovers over the kid, right? And but then there's the lawnmower parent who is ahead of the kid and like blazes the trail, so the kid never skins their knees, they never make a mistake, they never make a bad decision. Like, that's not healthy. Okay, so it's the same thing in leadership, letting people fail. Failure is a good thing.
I love that.
Hey, do you have a budget set for 2023? Are you starting the estimating process with a budget in place to ensure that you are recovering your overhead expenses, labor, material costs, profit, and other hidden expenses within your business? Do you know that you're making profit on certain projects throughout the year? If you're struggling with any of these things, then the How to Hardscape headquarters can help you this year. Check it out at members.howtohardscape.com or shoot me a message at howtohardscape on Instagram. This software will streamline processes in your business. It's going to help you budget, estimate, ensure that you are making profit on projects throughout the year, and help you adjust throughout the year. We're also going to be continuously improving this software to include more and more features, as well as the content that's already available to members right now if you're looking to train your employees as they come in. So once again, members.howtohardscape.com. The price will continuously go up as more features and as more content is offered over there. So there's never a bad time to get signed up with that. And with that being said, let's get back to the episode.
After a sale, I've listened to podcasts and other things of people selling their business, and what's on the other side for a business owner. I've heard some horror stories, I've heard some good stories, and everything in between. But for you, Phil, what have you seen, and what kind of advice would you give to a business owner on the other side of a sale?
Yeah, the horror stories come from people having regret. Because they didn't plan for what they were going to do once they sold their business. And so I think my best advice is to have a really clear objective and purpose after your business that you are just so excited, so passionate about, that you just can't wait to get onto that. Because then you're onto something else, the next chapter in your life, whatever it is. If you don't do that work ahead of time and then you sell, And then you go, oh crap, what did I do? Because I just gave away my purpose. I have no purpose now. That's when the regret comes in. Because to think that you're just gonna, even if you cashed out with, lots of money, to think that you're just gonna be sitting around all day and feel good, you're not gonna feel good about that. Because especially if you've been an owner and you've been grinding it for 20, 30 years, you're gonna go to zero and you're just gonna sit there and do nothing. It's not realistic. So just having some clear thought about what am I going to do now? Because there's so much need out there. There's so much people can do, even if it was start another business, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's volunteering or traveling or doing something that's purposeful. I think helping people, helping other people is so satisfying. Just, to think that you're going to do something for your own benefit in your own comfort, to me, that is very short lived. Like, that sounds like a vacation. It sounds like 3 days. Okay. But then day 4, I want to go help somebody. Okay. So I want to make a difference.
Yeah, that's exactly what I've heard is, especially when you're an entrepreneur and you're used to going at 100 and then you sell and then, what are you going to do afterwards? I do want to ask you one last question as we come to a close here, Phil, and that's, uh, deciding with the end in mind, the moves that you make in your business, the way you structure your business. Is there a difference between selling your business with the end in mind versus passing off to your next generation? And I ask that because, what if a business owner, they have an end in mind to pass to the next generation the business, but that next generation comes up and decides they don't want to have anything to do with the business? What are the differences in terms of then deciding all of a sudden that, what, you're going to have to sell this thing? And what has been your experience with that, with business owners that have been kind of stuck in that position, if any?
Well, the good news is there's no difference, because the same things that you do to build value in your company to sell it are the things that you do to build value so that your kids can be successful, or your employees, or whoever you're, doing the succession to. So they're all the same things, building a leadership team, systems and processes and all the other things that go into this. They're all the same. So that's the good news.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's good to hear that. With that being said, Phil, where can our audience go to learn more about you? I know we talked about tamariskadvisors.com in this interview. Anything else that you would want to leave our listeners with before we come to a close here?
Well, I would say check out the resources at the Go Forth page on Tamarisk Advisors. There's also a contact form there for me. That'll go right to my email. So I get those and screen those on behalf of my team. So that's an easy way to connect with me. At growthebench.com, we have a subscription link there for our weekly newsletter. And we've been pushing out a weekly newsletter for 15 years. We haven't missed a week in 15 years. And that newsletter is 100% free, unsubscribe, one click. But it has, every week there's a great little 1-minute read, something interesting, something cool. So check that out as well.
And Phil, I have one last question to come to a close here for you. It's a question that I ask every buddy that does come on the podcast now, mostly just business owners, but I'm asking it to everybody. And that is, what is one thing you know now that you wish you knew from the beginning? And that can be business related, that can be personal related. I know it's a big question to just drop on you here to think of a response to that, but what is that one thing you know now that you wish you knew from the beginning?
That is a big question. That's a big one. One of the things I've just experienced throughout my career is, when I was younger in my career, I was very I was confident and I was competent and I was, just going at it hard every day. But I was kind of anxious inside. Like, I was very jealous of what other people had. And I never really felt, this is early in my career when I was young, starting out, I never felt like I was really where I wanted to be. And I was very frustrated by that. There's just this, I didn't show it. I didn't talk to my wife about it necessarily, but it was just kind of always eating at me. And then at some point, I hit a point in my career where I was like, you know, why am I comparing myself to everyone else? Like I'm doing what I'm called to do. And I just need to do that to the best of my ability. And at some point all those feelings went away. And that was such a blessing. It's such a great thing to not have that eating at me. And I don't know if I could have done anything about that earlier in my career. I don't know if I should have got some therapy or something, but I definitely had the wrong mindset because I wasn't focused on the right thing. I was focused externally on what everyone else was doing and what everyone else had, even though I felt like I was walking the walk I was called to walk. I felt like I was on the right path, like doing the right things with my career. And I absolutely was looking back. But in the moment, I was very frustrated. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm answering your question or not, but
that's an excellent response. And I'm sure many people can empathize with that and are in the same situation. That definitely hits home for me. Phil, great way to put a bow on this podcast. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode with Phil Harwood. If you enjoyed these episodes, I would very much appreciate a rating and review. If you're on Apple Podcasts, if you're on Spotify, a rating, it's a quick little tap there at the star icon on our homepage on Spotify, or ratings and reviews on Apple. That would be very much appreciated. That really helps actually with this podcast. So ratings, reviews, sharing, whatever you could do, I really do appreciate that. And if you need bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, reach out to Cycle CPA, cyclecpa.com, cycle_CPA on Instagram. Mention the How to Hardscape podcast to get $200 off their services there. And if you want to learn budgeting, estimating from your budget, setting goals, reaching those goals through your estimating, taking into consideration your budgeting, then reach out to How to Hardscape. We'll get you set up with the How to Hardscape headquarters software and help you take control of your business. And we look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.